Hey guys, Brandon here. Today we're going to talk about deliberate practice. So, my daughter has been taking these music classes for the last, I think, 3 years. She does this program called Let's Play Music, by the way, that I think is really cool. I'd highly recommend it if you can find a certified teacher in your area. It doesn't just do piano, but from the very beginning, they are teaching kids theory. So I just think that's really cool. But anyway, she's taking these music classes, and one thing that I'm really interested in having her learn in this classes isn't just like learning about music or learning about piano. To me, it's also really important that she learns just like how to learn in general. So I want her to take the experience of learning how to play piano and be able to apply it to other skills she wants to take on. I want her to have the experience of working through, the frustration of just patiently working day in, day out on a skill and hopefully seeing some benefits over a certain length of time. So that's what I really hope she learns from this experience. I I want her to learn how to learn. And on this channel, I talk specifically about how it applies to learning to draw, but learning is absolutely a skill that you can learn and get better at doing. And the basic principles of learning apply really to any skill you want to take on. With that in mind, I want to talk about my specific theories about learning, and I'll talk about how they apply specifically to learning how to draw. And a book I read a while back that really influenced my thinking on practice and how to practice drawing is this book by Daniel Coyle called The Talent Code. And so, he's basically collecting all this research and kind of analyzing and putting it together away and into this concept that I really like on how to approach practice. We've all heard this idea before of the 10,000 hours, popularized um, by Malcolm Gladwell, right? That you spend 10,000 hours doing something to master it. And kind of what the talent code said and what Coyle was saying that really stuck with me is this idea that how you spend that time is incredibly important. And so there's a word for this, like the right type of practice, the right way to spend that time is called deliberate practice, and it's a term that's been used in actual research about practice and about this subject. So I'm going to kind of give you my take on it, the way I understand it, and so the very first thing we're looking at here is you have to learn how to demystify what you're trying to learn. And there's a great movie that I like on the subject. It's called The Edge, and it's basically a movie about Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins killing a bear. That's the simple version. But what's most interesting is what leads up to them killing the bear. They're being hunted by the bear. They like have a plane wreck and they're lost in a forest and they're being hunted by a bear. And Anthony Hopkins' character decides that he wants to figure out how they can kill the bear. And Alec Baldwin's character is completely dumbfounded and he's like, "Are you kidding? We're trapped in the woods with only sticks and rocks. How can we possibly kill a bear?" And I'm paraphrasing here. I like deliberately didn't go back and look this up just because I wanted to see kind of what my recall of it was. But anyway, Anthony Hopkins' character turns to Alec Baldwin's character and says, "What one man can do, another man can do." And that's like the kind of most important climactic expression in the movie. And so what they basically do is they basically figure out how it is that Native Americans used to kill bears, and they use that same technique, and they go kill a bear. So I think that's the basic idea. You can look up the actual words from the movie and tell me how I'm wrong. But as you navigate through life, you're gonna see people do like extraordinary, amazing, inhuman, miraculous things, and it's going to be easy to stare in awe and fall down and worship them. Um, but when you see these superpowered humans, the first thing to remember is that what one man can do, another man can do. So if one person learned how to do something amazing, you can also learn how to do that amazing thing. And it's just a matter of understanding that path and being willing and able to dedicate your time to make that happen and have the patience to see it happen. And that's not to say that you're necessarily going to reach their same heights of accomplishment. There's so many factors that play into that. You know, you may not be the best in the world at doing what you're trying to do, but I can guarantee you're going to get pretty dang good at what you're doing with the right approach. So now that you believe in yourself, let's get to work. So let's talk about this deliberate practice thing. There are lots of ways to describe what deliberate practice is, so I'm gonna try to just come at it from some different angles, and some of these are gonna kind of cover the same idea really, but I think by coming at them from different angles, it'll just kind of illuminate them in different ways and hopefully help to describe them better. So here's kind of the first angle. Deliberate practice means spending your time practicing stuff you don't know how to do. So if you just do stuff you know how to do, you're not going to learn anything new, right? So just spending hours and hours drawing will not make you better if you are not using that time to try and do things you don't know how to do. So this is kind of getting back to that 10,000 hours thing. It's not enough just to put in time. You have to put in time trying to do new stuff that you don't know how to do. And I've gone into depth about this idea before, but this means learning completely new skills, or this also can mean refining existing skills. So I have another video where I call this adding plays to your playbook and running your play. So you can check that out if you want to get a more in-depth discussion of that particular idea. So here's kind of the second angle. So deliberate practice is like a Roadrunner cartoon. So what does deliberate practice feel like? It feels like being Wile E. Coyote. What does Wile E. Coyote do? He thinks, he tries, he fails, and he tries again. And he never catches the Roadrunner. This is important because most days you're not going to catch the Roadrunner. You're just going to be thinking, trying again, failing over and over and over again. So, most days you're just going to feel like you've run off the cliff and had that moment where you realize gravity doesn't exist and you fall down the bottom of the canyon and there's a little puff of dust, and that's all that's left. So, your success at deliberate practice is proportional to your willingness to be Wile E. Coyote. How willing are you to fail and to fail over and over and over again? And Stephen Pressfield in War of Art calls this, I guess, what does he call it? Being comfortable with being miserable. You have to just be okay with that experience of just trying and trying and trying and just hitting your head and over and over and over again. And it's important just to have faith, just to know that this experience of hitting your head over and over again isn't a bad thing. It's the right thing to do. So if you feel like Wile E. Coyote, you're on the right path. And so in this way, it kind of shows that learning to learn is really an issue of learning to be emotionally strong. You're learning to be okay with falling short and failing, and all of the tough emotions that come along with it. You're learning to be okay with being frustrated. You're learning to be okay with making a fool of yourself. And you're learning to be okay with being tired and worn out and bored. So, the truth is, this can be really terrifying for people. A lot of people, when they stop and think about making art, and they think about, oh, what if I just get really bored or frustrated, or what if I'm embarrassed by the final project and people make fun of me? And the truth is, the thing that terrifies you the most is the very thing you need to grow as an artist and as a person. This again is something I talk about more in another video, but making art is mostly an emotional battle, and so learning to have that emotional strength is is the most important tool you can have to move forward and to grow. Um, and so I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into this, I guess, and just talk about frustration. So the way I've kind of put it is, it's this battle of kind of getting through frustration or other difficult emotions, but I want to kind of frame it in a different way now of kind of the approach of embracing the frustration, kind of seeking out the frustration. So I don't know if you guys have seen this video. There's this video, it's popping around the internet, of this rabbi talking about the process for a lobster to grow. And so the way that the lobster grows, its shell is rigid, but its body, these fleshy tissues in its body continue to grow, and it gets uncomfortable. So that discomfort is the symbol for it to shed its old shell and to start growing its new shell. So it's the same with people. We need discomfort to be able to grow and to be able to move on to this next level. And so that's kind of one of the signs of correct deliberate practice, is that feeling of discomfort. Now, in this case, it's not our bodies that are growing, but literally it's our brains that are growing. So when we have discomfort in our brain, that frustration, that struggling to understand an idea and master an idea, that discomfort really pushes our brain to create new neurons, to grow, to get smarter, to gain abilities. Um, and that's kind of how you level up. So for me, this is a really empowering idea. Um, Once you know that frustration is good for you, you can seek it out, you can relish it, and you can use it as a way of knowing if you've done the work necessary that day to grow. So you sit down, you practice until you're frustrated, maybe stay in that frustration a little bit, maybe stay in it a little bit longer, you know, take a break, come back to it. Um, but you can kind of get a sense of when you've done enough work to to push your mind, and to make it grow. Um, Now, so one point that does come out of talent code that I think is super important is there has been research that's done about how you maximize learning day to day, and they've kind of shown that the ceiling is about 4 to 5 hours. Past that, you're going to get diminishing returns on the effort you put in. You're just going to be like struggling miserably, and you're not really going to be growing because of that. And I think even those 4 to 5 hours, you can kind of think of them as chunks of 30 to 45 minutes. I think ideally that's the best way to work, is you have those chunks. You take a little like 15 minute break between those chunks, and then you kind of come back to them. So one way to think about it is, if you can only get in one chunk a day, if you can only get in 30 to 45 minutes a day, that still is going to accrue over time. You're going to have that little amount of growth every single day that's going to show results over time if you're just very consistent, if you're persistent. So, man, if you have the luxury to spend more time, that's fantastic. Go for it. But, consider that you may not really get all the benefits from 4 to 5 hours of practice. For example, at the end of a day of work, if you go to a job that's very mentally tasking, or you're doing any other tasks throughout the day that are going to task you mentally, you're probably not going to be able to benefit from a full 4 to 5 hours, and you may want to think about having a smaller chunk that you work with every day, and possibly trying to move that to earlier in the day, when your mind can still be fresh. So, okay, here's kind of the fourth angle. The other thing I want to compare it to is deliberate practice is a lot like fixing a car. If you're gonna fix a car, you aren't just gonna like grab a bunch of tools and be like, all right, I'm just gonna spend about half an hour just randomly turning knobs and playing with things and pulling things out and putting them together in the car. If you're gonna fix a car, you're gonna go in, you're gonna try to analyze the problem, you're gonna diagnose it, and you're gonna start working on a specific task to fix it. If the tires are flat, you fill them with air. If the car won't start, you change the starter or the battery. You figure out what the exact problem is and you work on that specific problem. So deliberate practice requires some strategic thinking for you to really see benefits. You need to look at your own skills and you want to look at where there are gaps in your skills, where you want to improve, and you have to do drills and exercise that specifically challenge those areas that you want to improve in. When I first started as a novice concept artist at EA in 2008, I was tasked with doing a lot of technical art. So we had to do like robots, control rooms, that sort of thing. And up to this point, technical drawing was something I had really tried to avoid. It was this big gap in my skill set. I was not very good at it. I was intimidated by it. I just didn't know a lot about it. And so being put in this work situation where I kind of had to do technical drawing forced me to look directly at that gap in my skill set and to start working on it. And hopefully you can be in the case where you don't have to wait to be forced to look at those things. You can analyze your skill sets on your own and decide the things that you want to focus on. And so once I had identified that gap, I went and looked for exercises that could specifically target that gap. And in specific, I went to Gnomon workshops, and I found workshops by Feng Zhu and Scott Robertson, who are kind of these like awesome technical drawing gurus. And I spent every morning for, months just doing technical drawing exercises. Um, and that coupled with the actual assignments I had ended up helping me to focus on this skill set and helping to really grow and create a foundation for technical drawing. So like if you want to get better at technical drawing, you need to have specific exercises to get better at technical drawing, like drawing cubes and cylinders. If you want to get better at design, you need to do master studies of artists that do great design. Um, if you want to get better at observational drawing, you need to draw portraits and still lifes, and you have to check your work and be very, very disciplined and particular about making stuff accurate. And I understand sometimes it can be tricky to find a good drill or exercise to help you in a certain area. So if you have an area you'd like to improve and you want some ideas to attack it, please let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can help you come up with some ideas.